Vision is the dominant sense for most people with sight. The organ of sight is the eye. Think of it as a slightly irregular, hollow sphere that takes in light and translates it into images. If we enlarge the eye and look inside it, we can discover how that's done. Inside the eye are various structures working together to create an image the brain can understand. Among these are the cornea, a clear dome-like structure covering the iris or colored part of the eye, the lens directly below it, and the retina, which lines the back of the eye. The retina consists of thin layers of light-sensitive tissue. This candle can help us understand how the eye captures images and then sends them to the brain. First, the candlelight passes through the cornea. As it does, it's bent or refracted onto the lens. As the light passes through the lens, it's bent a second time. Finally, it arrives at the retina, where an image is formed. This double bending, though, has reversed the image and turned it upside down. If that was the end of the story, the world would always appear upside down. Fortunately, the image is turned right side up in the brain. Before that can happen, the image needs to travel as impulses along the optic nerve and enter the brain's occipital lobe. When the image forms there, it regains its proper perspective.
5 strange facts about the human eye. And make sure you stay until the end, because the last fact will blow your mind. Number 5, blue eyes. We have all seen them before, on someone. Maybe a family member. Or maybe when we look in the mirror. But if you have blue eyes, then you are only a member of what is a recent genetic mutation. For blue eyes were part of a mutation that occurred only 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. To put that in perspective, brown eyes have been around since the beginning of humans, and that is about 200,000 years. Hans Heiberg from the Department of Cellular and Molecular Medicine at the University of Copenhagen states that, originally, we all had brown eyes. But a genetic mutation affecting the ACAR2 gene in our chromosomes resulted in the creation of a switch, which literally turned off the ability to produce brown eyes. But in the end, whatever eye color you have, and whatever shape, we all sooner or later cry, which brings us to number 4. Our tears. When you cry, your tears are not the same as when you yawn or when something irritates your eye. They have a different composition. In fact, different tears, that is, tears of joy or tears of sadness, even look different from each other. In fact, one woman named Rose Fisher proved this by taking different pictures of tears under a microscope. She studied 100 different tears and found that the tears that come about from hard laughter aren't even near to the tears of sorrow. Like a drop of water, each tiny teardrop carries a microcosm of human experience. Her project is called the Topography of Tears. Each picture is taken from a different tear, and they have a different structure. You can tell just by looking at them, the difference between pain and laughter. It is quite amazing. Number 3, your retinas don't see the world the way you think they do. In fact, you see the world upside down. It is your brain that flips the image right side up, so the world looks the way it should. Which gives rise to the question, if the brain flips the image right side up, without us even knowing it, then what other ways does it fix the image that is coming through our eyes? Well, it also unscrambles the image, because the image that comes to your eyes is split in half. Your brain puts 2 halves of the image back together. It also fixes the problem that you cannot really see the color red. That's right, if it is your favorite color, it is a figment of your brain. Your retinas cannot detect the color red at all. It is your brain that blends the color together in order to make it, because your retinas cannot record it at all. Number 2, men and women are not equal. The eyes of women and men, at least how they see the world, is much different. In fact, the brains of women and men process colors in different ways. New research has shown that if both sexes look at the color orange, for example, that men will see a redder version of orange than a woman will see. That is, a woman will see a lighter version of orange. This is the same for many colors, but you can take the color green for example. A woman will see a much greener color of green, whereas a man will see a dark color of green. Researcher Professor Israel Abramov states that differences between the sexes' color vision cannot be explained by differences in the structure of the eye. Therefore, the answer must lie in the way the brain processes information taken in by the eye. Number 1. Eyes are a doorway to the soul. Recent research made by vision researcher Giovanni Caputo from the University of Urbino in Italy has shown that staring into the human eye, either your own eye in a mirror, or the eye of another person, changes the consciousness of humans. Forget hard drugs. If you stare into your own eye, it is much cheaper and better for your health. A few years ago, researcher Giovanni Caputo recruited 50 volunteers and got them to look at their reflections in a mirror for 10 minutes in a dimly lit room. For many of them, it took less than 1 minute to start experiencing something very strange. Their faces began to warp and change, taking on the appearance of animals, monsters, or even deceased family members, a phenomenon imaginatively named the strange face illusion. But it seems the effects are even more strange when the mirror is swapped for another person. According to the British Psychological Society, those in the group that faced one, looking into the eyes of another person 3 feet away, experienced higher levels of attenuated color intensity, with noises also seeming louder than they should. Time seemed to slow down and they felt their minds empty of all thoughts. Additionally, almost all of them said their partner's face appeared deformed. 2/3 saw monstrous beings and 15% even saw traits of a relative's face emerge on their partner. So I guess the eyes are really a window to the soul. Or maybe something else. Or maybe something else. Or maybe something else.
You guys, the Earth is either a lens or it's flat. I showed you the inner eye, but it is not a globe. But it is not a globe.
Enter the stars, and we found something that's simply incredible. We found that the shape of the universe exists inside of the eye. From eclipses of the moon, we found the sun. We found the rainbows. We also found the floating planets above us in the stillness. We found the 4 muscles of the eye, which are the 4 pillars of the world, as well as hell, the iris below, the pupil, the dark pit, and there's so much more, and I can't wait to show each and every one of you. You see, the secrets of the universe were staring us in the eyes the whole time. And why would we ever doubt that? The creator of our universe encoding the very secrets of that universe within his own creation. That is the only way he could actually prove without being able to have us interact with him, because we've been cut off. It was the only way he could prove to us who he was, by seeing everything around us and comparing it to our own creation, what is inside of us. That is the only way that God could ever prove it in the way that some people need it to be proven to them. Those who don't have faith and those that continue to deny what is right in their eyes will ultimately be cut off.
The 6th angel sounded his trumpet, and I heard a voice coming up from the 4 horns of the golden altar that is before God. The 4 horns of the golden altar that is before God. And this is the cerebellum, the underside of the brain. And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud and a rainbow upon his head. And its face were the sun, and its feet were pillars of fire. And he had in his hand a little open book. And he had set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot upon the earth. Now these other 4 bands of muscles coming in around the eye are the 4 angels at the 4 corners of the earth, with the 4 winds mentioned in Revelation. But this other angel coming out of the east fits the description of this muscle exactly. The little book is the trochlea. The trochlea, a bone that holds in this muscle here. And the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven. Lifted up his hand to heaven, the hand holding the book. And swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that therein are, and the earth and the things that therein are, and the sea, and the things which therein, that there should be time no longer. But in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants the prophets. And the voice which I heard from heaven spake unto me again, and said, Go, and take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. And I went unto the angel and said unto him, Give me the little book. And he said unto me, Take it, eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, and it shall be in thy mouth as sweet as honey. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. The 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks. The 2 candlesticks and the 2 olive trees, as you can see here. Here are the trunks of the olive trees and the tops. And here are the 2 candlesticks standing before the throne of God.
And we are so close to finding the ultimate truth. I want to recommend this video. There are no forests on flat earth. Wake up. What you're looking at is a cross-section of a flax stalk. And you're seeing that this person is comparing the various stalks or seeming stalks around the earth. Flat mesa surfaces with columns of hexagonal beams squashed together, just like the stalk, And this is simply amazing, because I believe now that we have another very specific piece to the puzzle, that these stalks that are coming up out of the earth, coated in a skin just like the skin inside of the flax stalk, I believe that these were all hyaloid canals, conduits to heaven, And this is just simply amazing because this was the missing piece to the puzzle. And I told you guys before that there were these structures around the earth, which is what you're seeing on your screen, coming up out of the ground. They look like stumps, as this YouTuber describes here. They look like stumps, except they're all cut off. Now, we talked about this lens here in the eye, and then when you cut right through the center, just like this, you get a cross section of a honeycomb matrix. We also talked about the different areas around the earth. The Devil's Postpile in Mammoth and Giant's Causeway in Scotland, and how these large hexagonal features were coming up out of the ground, confirming the cross-section theory of the earth here, that this convex lens is where we live. We also told you about the dome being the firmament, and that this was depicted in the Hunger Games when Katniss shoots her arrow, her arc, with a string attached to it, the hyaloid canal, into the firmament dome, which is all hexagonal. Just exactly what you're seeing on your screen on the left. And I will put a link in the description for that video that you're watching. And we understand that when you do a cross section of the rods and cones that line this inner eye here, it also looks like a hexagonal honeycomb matrix. And this is the prison, you guys. But it goes even deeper, because you're wondering, why are they all cut off? As this gentleman is demonstrating in this video, why are all these stumps cut off? And I believe that it is because we have been cut off from heaven because we've fallen into sin. And these may have even been the conduits by which we had access to heaven before the fall of man. Jack and the Beanstalk comes to mind, a knockoff story of a giant and a conduit to the heavens. Now, this is amazing because I don't think anyone's ever looked at this before, you guys. But this gentleman helped me put some more of the puzzle pieces together. Now, this is huge because it mimics birth. This hyaloid canal is the umbilical cord. And just like the umbilical cord in the womb for the child, this hyaloid canal disappears after birth. It falls away because its only purpose in vitro, or in the womb, was to feed the lens and develop the lens of the fetus inside the womb. And once the fetus is born, this disappears and only a remnant is left. And some people see that as floaters. So you see, we are now seeing more pieces to the puzzle, and the kingdom of heaven is within. We look inside to find the answers, and that's why this hyaloid canal is going from the outside to the inside. This is the narrow gate. This is the Red Sea. This is the wilderness. This is the flood. And over again, God was trying to show us the truth. And here we see the side-by-side that this YouTuber puts together for us that so effectively shows that these, in fact, do look like tree stumps. And on your right, you're looking at the rings of certain trees that seem to resemble the honeycomb matrix that we've been talking about. Were these conduits to heaven? Was this the fall of man? Possibly the angels at the gate guarding the garden? Was this an ancient forest of trees going to heaven? These are the questions that will become clear in the coming days as we continue to try to fight to find the truth. Why do we fight to find the truth? Why are we so relentless in our search? Because we know deep down in our heart that we've been lied to. We know we've been lied to. And we know that the truth is out there. And the controllers of this world do not want us to find it. We know who rules this realm. We know who rules this realm. And therefore we know that there are other answers and other ways for us to find the truth, if only we want it bad enough, if only we seek it. Now, what is the hyaloid canal? And how does that fit in with what we're talking about? Well, I'm going to show you. This is the hyaloid canal, the narrow gate. And 40 days and 40 nights was the flood, and 40 years the Israelites were in the wilderness, and 40 days Jesus was in the wilderness. And I believe this is the wilderness here. The child in the womb for 40 weeks. It all fits together, you guys. He was trying to show us the truth. The hyaloid artery is a branch of the ophthalmic artery, which is itself a branch of the internal carotid artery. It is even calling it a branch, like a tree. It is contained within the optic stalk. That's like Jack and the Beanstalk, the stalk of the eye. The branches extend from the optic disc through the vitreous humor to the lens. The optic disc being the back here, and then the lens extending through the vitreous humor through the wilderness. Usually fully regressed before birth. Its purpose is to supply nutrients to the developing lens in the growing fetus. We are born then into sin. It is cut off, just like the images we're seeing around the world. And that is fascinating. During the 10th week of development in humans, the lens grows independent of the blood supply, and the hyaloid artery usually regresses. Its proximal portion remains as the central artery of the retina. The central artery of the retina, through which all vision comes through the central artery of the retina. Regression of the hyaloid artery leaves a clear central zone. This is the narrow gate through the vitreous humor called the hyaloid canal. Occasionally, the artery may not fully regress, resulting in the condition persistent hyaloid artery. More commonly, small remnants of the artery may remain. The remnant of Israel passing through the Red Sea, the remnant of mankind passing through the flood on Noah's Ark, and the remnant of God's seed, Jesus, passing through the wilderness for 40 days. Free remnants can sometimes be seen as floaters. An anterior remnant of the hyaloid artery can be seen in some people as Mittendorf's dot, a small pinpoint-like scar on the posterior surface of the lens. A posterior remnant may be seen where the artery left the optic disc and is known as Bergmeister's papilla. The Bergmeister's papilla is the remnant of the artery left on the optic disc, which looks probably a lot like this. And you can't make this up, you guys. This is the truth. And we will keep our eyes peeled. No pun intended. I believe we're getting closer to solving the secrets of this universe. Now, what you're looking at is a view from Kenya, Africa. And standing at exactly the equator, the stars in the middle of your view, the middle of the zenith, will move in exactly a straight line. But when you look to the right of the sky, the stars will travel in a direction opposite than the side over here on this side. One is going counterclockwise and one is going clockwise, and in the middle it's going straight up and down. How can this be? Somehow the image that we're seeing in the sky is a reflection or a refraction, which completely explains the reversal of the moon being upside down, the sun being upside down, the stars moving in the opposite direction in the southern hemisphere. Let's take a look. What we're looking at is a mirror effect of some kind, or a refraction of some kind of lens. Now this is interesting. This was a post by Casey Chan. I'm going to play a portion of this video. This will blow your mind. This is taken inside of a perfect mirror globe, as if you were standing inside a reflecting mirror that surrounded you like a sphere. I don't have all the answers, you guys, but I know what I see when I look at this image. And what we're looking at is reflections and refractions of an image. And we don't see this miracle with stop motion photography that is happening before our eyes. This is the image through a raindrop, and it is completely turned upside down. And when you start to think of things in these terms, then you start to understand that maybe we're looking at a reflection. Let's take a look at this short video.
But don't get too enamored with your reflection, because mirrors don't show you as you really are.
Now what this man was demonstrating is that when you're standing in exactly the middle of this mirror globe, that you see your face fully in your reflection. But then when you step away from it, from the center backwards, you flip upside down. But when you approach the side of the mirror from the middle, inside, you are right side up. So in effect, it is mimicking the image that we're seeing here as we're looking at the night sky from the equator only. When you're in the northern hemisphere, the stars go only one direction and they spin. And if you were to step over a few feet in the southern hemisphere, they spin in the opposite direction. I looked at some scriptures in the Bible to see if I could get any more clues. And it says here, or darkness that can't see, and abundance of water cover thee. Is not God in the height of heaven? And behold the height of the stars, how high they are. And thou sayest, how does God know? Can he judge through the dark cloud? Thick clouds are a covering to him, that he seeth not, and he walketh in the circuit of heaven. Now this is the King James Version. Praise him, ye heavens of heavens, and ye waters that be above the heavens.
Are there some kind of waters above the heavens that are reflecting this image to us? If any of you have any experience with lenses and domes, mirrors that would create this kind of effect on a given surface, please come forward and let's brainstorm and talk about it. So I dug a little deeper into the scriptures, and I saw how Lucifer fell from heaven, possibly as a star, and how he said, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. Maybe in this water region that we just saw in the last verse. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Now, for those of you that believe in God and have faith in Jesus Christ in the Bible, and take it as the indelible doctrine of the Creator, the Bible is clear, and God doesn't make mistakes. The sun is what stands still, not the earth. If the earth was rotating around the sun, he would say that the earth stood still, and that is what caused the sun to stop in the sky. Instead, in these 3 Bible verses, the sun and the moon stand still in their habitation. Not the earth stops spinning. Again, God doesn't make mistakes. Now let's get into the book of Enoch and see what it has to say. And Enoch confirms here that it is the stars and the moon and the sun that are moving, not the earth. By his oath, the sun and moon complete their progress, never swerving from the command given to them forever and ever. By this oath, the stars complete their progress. We see clearly here that everything exists on winds, and that is what governs the movement of heavenly bodies, as well as the clouds of the earth. They're on separate wind tracks, as it says here. I surveyed the receptacles of all the winds, perceiving that they contributed to adorn the whole creation, and to preserve the foundation of the earth. I surveyed the stone which supports the corners of the earth. Now it uses the word corners, so we have to be careful here. I also beheld the 4 winds which bear up the earth in the firmament of heaven, and I beheld the winds occupying the exalted sky, the heavens, arising in the midst of heaven and of earth, and constituting the pillars of heaven. I saw the winds which turn the sky, which cause the orb of the sun and all of the stars to set, or to move around the sky. And over the earth I saw the winds which support the clouds. So 2 separate wind tracks. I perceived at the extremity of the earth the firmament of heaven above it. Then I passed on toward the south. So he started in the north, and he saw the firmament of heaven. Firmament of heaven, which means heaven is firm, just like the earth is firm. Then I passed on toward the south. Then he gives more descriptions of what he saw in the south. Now this is interesting because Enoch talks about the stars, and that this place until the consummation of heaven and earth will be the prison of the stars and the host of heaven. Up above this firmament, the stars which roll over fire are those which transgressed the commandment of God before their time arrived, for they came not in their proper season. Therefore was he offended with them and bound them until the period of the consummation of their crimes in the secret year. So basically, there is a time where there will be a consummation between heaven and earth, and we know that. And the firmament between us will be erased, is what Enoch is saying here, which is, to me, it's fascinating, because it could explain how the image of the stars is reflected, and we are seeing an image of it rather than the actual stars themselves. And as we read on in Enoch, we see the truth about why the heavens were made. They were made for us, so that we could see God's glory. They were made for man, not for the universe and infinite planets and infinite other things. It was made for man. and that there were 3 heavenly gates. It says here, through each of these small gates the stars of heaven passed on and proceeded toward the west by a path which was seen by them, and that at every period of their appearance, when I beheld them, I blessed. Every time is which they appeared, I blessed the Lord of glory, who had made these great and splendid signs, that they might display the magnificence of his works to angels and to the souls of men, and that these might glorify all his works and operations, might see the effect of his power, might glorify the great labor of his hands, and bless him forever. And here is the hope, and here is why we are a little bit different. In his presence he existed, and has revealed to the saints and to the righteous the wisdom of the Lord of spirits. For he has preserved the lot of the righteous, because they have hated and rejected the world of iniquity, and have detested all its works and ways, in the name of the Lord of spirits. We don't love this world. We love the Lord of the spirits, God, and for that we will be hated. And in those last days, the saints and the chosen shall undergo a change. The light of day shall rest upon them, and the splendor and glory of the saints shall be changed. And the day of trouble, evil, shall be heaped up upon sinners. But the righteous shall triumph in the name of the Lord of spirits. Others shall be made to see that they must repent and forsake the works of their hands, and that glory awaits them, not in the presence of the Lord of spirits, yet that by his name they be saved. The Lord of spirits will have compassion on them, for great is his mercy, and righteousness is in his judgment, in the presence of his glory. Nor in his judgment shall iniquity stand. He who repents not before him shall perish. Henceforth I will not have mercy on them, saith the Lord of spirits. So everyone will be given a final chance to see the miracle of God's glory before the end. And the thoughts of those who dwell on the earth shall transgress within them, and they shall be perverted in all their ways. They shall transgress and think themselves gods, while evil shall be multiplied among them. And the punishment shall come upon them, so that all of them shall be destroyed. Now, just before this verse, Enoch talks about how everything in the sky is going to change, and that the seasons will be late, and fruit won't bear from trees. Now, anytime we hear a star falling in heaven or in the book of Enoch, it falls from heaven to earth. How can that be if the stars are billions of miles away and could fall and destroy planets? How can that be that these stars fall from heaven to earth all the time in the book of Enoch in the Bible? And here Enoch tells us what the stars are, all called by their respective names. In a righteous balance I saw it. He weighed out their light, the amplitude of their places, in the day of their appearance and their conversion. Splendor produced splendor, and their conversion was into the number of angels and of the faithful. We and the angels are represented in the stars. Then I inquired of the angel who proceeded with me, and explained to me secret things, what their names were. He answered, a similitude of those has the Lord of spirits shown thee. They are the names of the righteous who dwell upon the earth, and who believe in the name of the Lord of spirits forever and ever. Now we can understand why the morning star signified the coming of Jesus. And now we can understand why Lucifer fell like lightning from heaven. And there was a time when all the morning stars sang together, or all the stars sang together in heaven, before the fall of Lucifer. Do you see how all this can start to fit together? And now as you view the image of the inside of a spoon and the outside of the spoon, and you realize that they spin or are in opposite directions, I now want you to look at this papyrus symbol, ancient Egyptian. And imagine that this is one spoon, the outer edge, and that this is the other image with the inner spoon. And that one is going the other direction than the other. But at the equator, at this line, they appear to be going straight across. And here, they're moving in one direction, and down here, they're moving in another. This is ancient Egyptian papyrus. Did they know something that we don't? And God is simply amazing. In researching further into the dung beetle, just after the video that I just put up about the scarab beetle, I'm finding some fascinating subject matter on the colorization of these beetles. Now, what I'm talking about is circularly polarized light. In other words, the light is made of structure. The color is made of structure, not of pigment. Now here's one amazing example of how this is demonstrated. This is a berry, and this berry has some of the most intense color in the world. Why? Because the structure of it is like millions of tiny mirrors reflecting light back at you. When you change your position, your viewpoint, looking at these berries, it can actually change colors. Now, there are some diagrams here that demonstrate how this works. Light comes in through a surface material, reflects off of an internal material, and comes back at your eye. Now these can be layered in several layers with different plants and animals throughout God's kingdom. Here's another example of how this works. Multiple layers, single layers. But there always seems to be one rule. A background of dark pigment is necessary for us to see this. The backdrop. And that reminds me of the night sky. Now, how did we find this? How did we stumble upon this? We were examining the scarab beetle and noticing how the reflection, the structure, the makeup of the night sky at the equator, spinning in opposite directions to your left and right view, but going straight up and down in the middle at the equator of Earth, was similar to the makeup of the scarab beetle and also the images we are given by ancient Egypt. And we noticed how there were two lenses depicted in what we are shown that seemed to mimic the spoon reflections. So we have a spoon here, the inside of a spoon, and a spoon here, the outside of a spoon. And when you look into the outside of a spoon, we'll just imagine that this is it here, we notice that this image of the scarab beetle seems to mimic the image that we would see in the night sky of the spoon. Now I'm explaining this further because this was a little confusing on the last video. I understand that sometimes we need the commentary to go along with the explanation of this. But this is the night sky seen at the equator. Let's minus this, and maybe this will be a little easier to understand. Right in the middle of the sky, at the equator, the stars move in one direction, vertically. If you were to use time-lapse photography over the course of the entire night, they would move perfectly vertically in the sky. But when you look to the right in the sky, remember, standing in the equator, the stars will move in a circular direction. But when you look to the left of the sky, they move in the opposite direction as the stars in the right of the sky. So we deduced that maybe we were seeing some kind of reflection. And that's when I began to look into the spoon. And when you look into a spoon, one image is concave and one is convex. And when you look at the convex spoon, it flips your image. You can try this with any shiny silver spoon. Look at it and the image is flipped, but when you flip the spoon around, you see yourself right side up. So then I began to think and search, which is what we do on this channel, for the truth. We might not get it right, but we are searching, presenting the synchronicity so you yourself can decide what the truth is. That's what this is about. And I realized something very bizarre, that this scarab beetle, we are seeing a spoon here and a spoon in this direction here. So we're seeing this image, this same thing, in which spiraling something this